Howdy, I'm Cameron Porter with Salt Lake Wholesale Sports. This is Jordan Mitchell with Salt Lake Wholesale as well. We're here to talk to you about measuring gun violence versus measuring violent crime. Big shout out to Salt Lake Wholesale Sports for making Guns Explained a reality. You can check out their website at saltlakewholesalesports.com, and if you like what we do here, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. A lot of disagreement in the gun debate comes from the two sides of the aisle having two completely different conversations, and a lot of confusion about the relationship between guns and crime and how the US compares in violence to other countries comes from this problem. People on the left tend to want to talk about gun violence, and the right tries to focus on violent crime. These are two completely different measurements, and it really does matter what we're talking about the same thing.
For example, the left-leaning Giffords Law Center has a point scoring system for state-level gun control laws and assigns states a ranking 1 to 50 for how loose or strict their gun control laws are, then compares those rankings with gun deaths if in the state. Now, a few disclaimers. Number one, they're being a little too vague for this data to have much value. They don't separate gang violence from mass shootings, from suicides. It's just all lumped together under gun violence, even though they are very different things. They're also not looking at the effects of specific policies like bans on high-capacity magazines or bans on firearms with pistol grips, just grouping them all together. Number two, I could not find any details on their scoring system. It just says that they look for responsible laws like background checks on private sales and reckless laws like stand your ground, and they assign them points. But all laws are all laws given the same number of points, or are they weighted? That methodology is problematic for a number of reasons, but this is still a fantastic example for what we're trying to communicate today.
So, using the Giffords Law Center's point scoring system, here is the chart they have that shows the correlation between stronger gun laws and fewer gun deaths. Holy crap, that is one strong correlation. And let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it is in fact an accurate representation of what is really going on. This is measuring gun laws with gun violence.
But what happens if we take these exact same rankings and instead compare them to violent crime rates, which encompasses all forms of violent crime? What do we find? First, we should point out that Giffords for some reason didn't include Washington, D.C. in their rankings, which is a little suspicious because D.C. has arguably the strictest gun control in the nation and yet the highest violent crime rate by far. So we added it as tied with California for the number one strictest gun control laws. Here's what we find. Again, absolutely no correlation at all. That could almost be textbook of what no correlation really looks like. This is why it's so important to measure and make sure what we're talking about is the same thing, because yeah, the left says that more guns means more gun crime. There's a lot of good evidence to substantiate that conclusion. But if they say that more guns means more overall violent crime, they're totally wrong. Yeah, that strong correlation that Giffords found, it's totally gone when you compare actual violent crime rates with their ranking system.
So what should we be focusing on? Gun violence or violent crime? Well, here are my thoughts on this. Being stabbed is not inherently better or worse than being shot, yes? And a violent crime committed with a knife is not inherently better or worse than a violent crime committed with a gun, yes? So, hypothetically, if we just traded all gun crime for knife crime and the death rate stayed the same, again hypothetically, would we have accomplished anything? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. The answer to that is no. So therefore, I would rather talk about violent crime, because if gun crime goes down but violent crime rate stays the same, I don't think anything's been accomplished. It's also more useful to hone in on a specific type of crime as opposed to the weapon being used to commit it. So for example, a mugging committed with a knife and a mugging committed with a gun are far more likely to have important environmental, psychological, and socioeconomic factors in common than a mugging committed with a gun and a rape committed with a gun. So I would find a lot more value in a discussion about how to prevent mugging, or how to prevent gang violence, or prevent mass murder, or some kind of specific category of crime, rather than a discussion on what percentage of each crime is committed with what weapon. So those are our thoughts. We'd love to hear yours. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. And hey, if you have anything you'd like us to cover in a future episode, let us know as well. Thanks for watching. We will see you next week on Guns Explained.